Vlogging cameras are now better than ever. You finally get the convenience of your phone, but with the video quality of a pro camera. However, a good vlog camera is very specialized because there's so many different styles of vlogging, and you need to make sure your camera has the specific features you need for your style. Otherwise, you might get a great camera that simply isn't designed for you. So in this video, I'm going to show you the best cameras for different shooting styles and budgets, and what features you absolutely need in your vlogging camera. And as always, I'll leave links down below for the best pricing on all the cameras we talk about. So the first camera on this list is the most popular vlogging camera. Not only does it have great video quality, but it was designed from the ground up specifically for vloggers and creators, and it actually completely changed how we do vlogging cameras. And that is the Sony ZV-E10 and its new big brother, the ZV-E10 Mark II, which I'll mention later. But this is just the first camera on this list, and there's other cameras later on that might be a better fit for you if you're a hybrid shooter or you really want a pocket-sized vlog camera. Now, back to the ZV-E10. What makes the ZV-E10 such a special camera is definitely the design. It's an ultra small and compact camera. It's super light. You can literally take this camera anywhere with you, and button layout is ultra minimalist. It has one button to quickly switch between photos, videos, and slow motion, and two separate record buttons for photo and video. And by having such a simple button layout, not only is this camera easier to use, but you can also work with it faster. The ZV-10 has a built-in 3-capsule microphone that's going to give you very solid audio even in busy environments. And by having this microphone built in, not only will you save money by not having to buy yet another thing for your new camera, but it's also going to help keep your camera smaller. And it also has a side articulating screen for self-recording, and this screen also has touch autofocus that is going to make your life infinitely easier, especially when vlogging. You can simply tap the screen and boom, you're in focus. And you can also connect the ZV-10 to the Sony Creator phone app. Now I know most phone apps for cameras absolutely suck, but this is the one exception. With this app, you can change any of the major settings on your camera, start and stop recording, and even change your focus points. It's kind of like having a second screen for your camera. The battery life on the ZV-10 is a bit short, but if you're just casually shooting on and off throughout the day, you can easily shoot all day on a single charge, but I would recommend a spare battery. However, you can also power and charge this camera via the USB-C port, so you can easily just plug in your phone bank. Inside the ZV-10, you have a 24 megapixel APS-C size sensor, which is pretty much the standard size and resolution for a camera like this, and it's more than enough resolution for vlogging. But there are two things about this sensor that really set the ZV-10 apart. For one, it's really good in low light. So if you're someone that's traveling, working with tricky lighting conditions, or you just want to vlog at nighttime, you're going to get very clean and crisp video. And the autofocus is 10 out of 10. It's fast and reliable, even in fast-moving environments, and it also has face and eye tracking, which is perfect for vloggers. And it also has a unique feature known as product showcase mode, where you hold an item up to the camera and the focus will snap to the item and then snap back to your face when you put the item down. This is a really useful feature for someone that's a tech YouTuber like me or a beauty vlogger that's often showing items to the camera. In terms of video, it shoots 4K at 24 and 30 frames per second, but it's also downsampled from 6K, so your 4K video is really going to have the detail and clarity of 6K video. Not only is this going to look better than most 4K cameras, but it's going to blow every single cell phone out of the water. The ZV-10 also has slow motion in full HD resolution at 60 and 120 frames per second, and for most vloggers, this is pretty much everything you need in terms of frame rates. Now, most vloggers don't really edit the colors in their video, but cinematic vlogs are becoming more and more popular on YouTube. So the Sony ZV-10 can also shoot S-Log3 and cinema profiles, which allow you to get more flexibility over your video when it comes to editing, and you can easily make this camera look cinematic if you know how to. But the Sony ZV-10 only shoots in 8-bit color, where most newer cameras now shoot in 10-bit color, which gives you a lot more flexibility. And learning how to color grade S-Log3 does take a little bit of learning, so it's not very beginner friendly. And that's where the ZV-E10 Mark II comes in. Because the ZV-E10 Mark II has 10-bit color, but it also has cinematic vlog mode and creative filters, which basically do all the work for you when it comes to getting a stylistic or cinematic look. Now I know we're talking about vlogging, but at some point you're gonna need to drop an Instagram banger or take a YouTube thumbnail. So the ZV-10 can also shoot at 10 frames per second up to 116 JPEGs in a row, or 42 raw photos. So this is going to be more than enough for Instagram or YouTube, and it's a pretty powerful photo camera in its own right. So if you want a powerful camera with great specs and probably the perfect design for vlogging, the ZV-10 is a great fit for almost any vlogger. But if there's anything you don't like about the ZV-E10, check out the Mark II version instead. It's better in almost every single way. It's got a bigger battery, better touch controls, better audio, and of course it also has 4K 60 with 10-bit color. And I also have a comparison video and a full review on the channel. However, if you're looking for a camera that's a little bit more beginner friendly for color grading, and you don't just want a pure vlogging camera, maybe you also want it to work for photos, then the next camera might just be perfect for you. And that is the Canon R50. The camera is designed like a pretty typical photo camera, but it has one feature in it that makes it way better for vlogging than you would expect. The body is small and compact, but it also has an electronic viewfinder, which I know photographers will appreciate. The button layout on the R50 is pretty much your typical photo camera layout, but switching between photo and video is just one click on that mode dial. And the R50 also has a built-in flash, so if you're someone that's doing amateur or casual photography, this is a nice feature to have, and it's definitely not something you see on most vlogging cameras. It also has a side articulating screen for self-recording, but the screen is also 100% touch sensitive with touch autofocus. You can use it to navigate all of your menus, change all of your major settings like shutter, aperture, ISO, but there's also a quick menu on the main screen that's going to give you access to all of the key settings that you need to change on the fly while vlogging, and working with this camera is way easier simply because of this touchscreen. You can also connect the R50 to your phone using the Canon camera app, and with this you can control all of the major settings and focus as well. This app isn't quite as good as the Sony app, but it's still pretty solid overall. And the R50 also has pretty decent battery life, and you can also power and charge this camera via the USB-C port. Inside the Canon R50, you have a high quality 24 megapixel APS-C size sensor, which is great for both photos and videos. And another thing that is special about the sensor are the gorgeous in-camera colors. Everything looks very true to life with just a hint of warmth and saturation. And the colors look especially good for skin tones and nature. So your photos and videos are going to look great right from the camera with very little editing needed. Another cool feature of the R50 is the AI-based autofocus. This autofocusing system can intelligently recognize subject matter like human, animals, and cars, and does a spectacular job at tracking the subject matter even in fast-moving environments. It's going to give you very reliable and sticky autofocus in almost any kind of shooting scenario. And it's probably a little bit overkill for vlogging, but it just lets you know that this autofocus is never going to let you down. When it comes to actually vlogging with the R50, it gives you 4K video at 24 and 30 frames per second that is also downsampled from 6K, giving you crisp footage with the detail and clarity of 6K video, but in a smaller 4K file. Now, something that makes the R50 a great vlogging camera, and maybe even a better camera than the Sony ZV-E10, is the ability to shoot 10-bit color in HDR PQ mode. This mode is going to give you more dynamic range and more flexibility over your colors, kind of like a cinema profile. But you can edit these colors without needing any sort of specialized software or tools, and you can easily adjust this footage just on your cell phone. And the Canon R50 also shoots full HD slow motion at 60 frames per second and 120 frames per second. One thing that's really impressive about the Canon R50 is that when it comes to photos, this camera absolutely rips. It can shoot anywhere between 12 frames per second to 15 frames per second, which is a lot faster than the ZV-E10, but it can also shoot up to 28 to 48 JPEGs in a row, depending on how fast you're shooting. But it's not a particularly good camera for someone that wants to shoot in RAW, because in RAW mode, it only shoots 7 frames per second, and for the most part, the ZV-E10 is actually a better RAW photo camera. But if you're just shooting photos for Instagram or YouTube thumbnails, the R50 is more than capable. So if you're looking for a beginner-friendly camera that's great at both vlogging and video and still has the design features and specs to be a great photo camera as well, the R50 is a phenomenal choice. Now, the two cameras we've talked about so far are great for vlogging, but they are missing one feature that I know a lot of you guys are looking for, and that is a pocket-sized camera. And when it comes to pocket cameras, there's only one camera that's really an option, and it's not only the best vlogging camera, but the best camera in general, and that is the ZV-1 Mark II. But not only is it a pocket-sized camera, but it also has some features that not even the bigger and better cameras have. And because it's part of the Sony ZV line, it has a pretty similar design to what I think is the perfect camera for vlogging, and that is the Sony ZV-E10. It has one button to switch between photo, video, and slow motion, and two separate record buttons for photo and video. And it also has the 3 capsule microphone built in for very solid audio, but with this camera, you can also have the option of getting the audio from the front, the back, or both the back and the front at the same time, giving you more control over your audio. And because it's a point and shoot camera, it also has a built-in lens. It has an 18 to 55mm lens, giving you both a super wide for vlogging where you can see things around you, but also a 50mm tight shot for details and close-ups. And this lens also has a variable aperture between f1.8 and f4. This makes it a really good low light lens when you're shooting on the wide side, but it's not a great low light lens when you're shooting on the zoomed in side at f4. Overall, as a vlogging lens, this is probably the perfect lens for that. It's probably the best lens that you can get in a point and shoot camera. And the ZV-1 also has a side articulating screen that also has touch controls, touch autofocus, so you can control all of your menus and all of your major settings just using the screen on the back. And despite being a point and shoot camera, the ZV-1 does have a very solid battery life. You can easily shoot on this camera all day, and you can also charge and power this camera via the USB-C port. Inside the ZV-1, you have a 20 megapixel 1-inch sensor. Now this sensor is smaller than the other cameras we talked about earlier, but this is pretty typical in terms of sensor size for a point and shoot camera, and it's absolutely going to blow away most cell phones. And the video quality from this camera is gorgeous, and unless I told you it was a point and shoot camera, you probably couldn't tell. But the downside of the sensor is that it's not very good at high ISOs, but I still got pretty decent results at 3200 and 6400 ISO. And one thing I love about the ZV-1 is that it also has very solid autofocus. Now it's not a eye-based autofocus, but it does a really good job with tracking moving subject matter and also has active face and eye detect. As a vlogger that's running and gunning and mainly shooting themselves, the autofocus will not let you down. In terms of video, the ZV-1 shoots 4K at 24 and 30 frames per second, but also Full HD at 60 and 120 frames per second. The 4K in this camera is not downsampled, however. But one really cool feature in the ZV-1 that the other bigger and more expensive cameras don't have is something known as cinematic vlog mode, where it basically adds black bars to the top and bottom of your image, but it also gives you a bunch of unique custom filmic looks to add to your image, and each of these looks is actually customizable, so you can mix and match with different options. And this is a really useful tool for getting a cool look to your videos with minimal work. The only thing I don't like about this mode is the black bars at the top and bottom. I don't think this is right for YouTube, but if you do want to make a cinematic sequence that's somewhere in your video, this is a really useful tool. However, if you want to do everything on your own, the ZV-1 does have 8-bit color with S-Log 3 and cinema profile, so if you want, you can get a cool cinematic look to your camera if you know how to. When it comes to photos, the ZV-1 is absolutely insane. It shoots 24 frames per second, which is as fast as video, making it pretty much impossible to miss your shot, and you're basically shooting movies in photo mode. And it can even take 800 JPEGs in a row, which is way beyond what you need for a social media or YouTube thumbnail camera. If you're someone that's looking for a powerful vlogging camera that fits in your pocket, the ZV-1 is without a doubt the best choice for you. And I love the fact that it has cinematic vlog mode, that you're able to get a cool cinematic look to your videos with very little work. And if you want to pick up the ZV-1 or the other cameras we talk about at the best price possible, make sure to check out the links in the description down below, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.